All right, guys, I want to talk about residential listing agreement today. Sorry about missing class previously. Was in a bikini, locked out of my Airbnb. It's not fun. Not a phone. Oh my gosh, nothing, girl. I don't know anyone. It was like hot outside. There was no place to sit. Okay, so residential listing agreement. There's more than one type of listing agreement. Okay, there's an income property listing agreement. Hello. So if you are ever looking at more than one unit, you're going to use that type. Also, it's an exclusive listing agreement. The only type of listing we take here at the brokerage is an exclusive listing agreement. And I think very important note to make, one of my biggest pet peeves is that if you have a pocket listing, you still have a signed listing agreement with an SELM. Otherwise, you have a seller lead and you can still work with that, but you do not have a pocket listing unless you have a signed agreement. See the chat box. Oh, you guys don't hear me. Brittany.
No, they're here.
Kristen, I can hear you, Kristen.
I hear you.
Okay. Ronson, can you hear me now? Okay, good. And by the way, Ronson, I sent your assignment to my assistant. Sorry for the delay. I should have had it out last night, but I forgot. So it'll happen today. All right. So exclusive agreement means that you are the only agent who can represent the seller and who can shop that listing. Any other agent can bring a buyer, obviously. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to screen share. All right. So just like with every other type of contract we have, whether that's a buyer representation agreement, whether that is a residential purchase agreement, same thing with residential listing agreement, it's a contract and therefore there are going to be disclosures that automatically accompany it. Okay. First one in this package being disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship. As a listing agent, at the time you take a listing, you have no idea if dual representation will be part of the deal. So every time we issue a contract, you're going to see this disclosure regarding agency relationship. I'd like to remind you that dual representation does not mean the same agent. It means any of the same agents from the same brokerage. So any of you, if you work with me on a transaction, we're providing dual representation. Okay, just so you know. Right, so I'm not going to go through the disclosures. I do teach a disclosure class, although there's never going to be enough time in the world to read all of those together. This is a pretty straightforward disclosure talking about what the responsibilities are of each of the parties involved in the transaction. You should read all of it because if your client has any questions, you should be familiar with it and able to answer those questions. And again, if you have questions about any of the documents that I tell you to read, but we don't review in class, please feel free to reach out to me directly. I will answer any questions that you have. Second is fair housing and discrimination advisory. All right, so typically, I shouldn't say typically. So there are federal protections for discrimination in real estate. And I don't often run into discrimination issues, but we've discussed this a little bit in other classes. So most of the time I run into it, it's when I'm working with a lease listing or something like that. And the landlord says, I don't want anyone with kids in there. They're going to destroy my house. And I say, ooh, la, 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 la. I did not hear that. Let me tell you about the Fair Housing and Discrimination Advisory. Let me share this with you. Familial status. Okay. Familial status is a protected class. So I'm going to give you an application that tells you about all of the proposed residents of a home. You do not need to tell me, I do not want you to tell me why you may be moving forward or not moving forward with an applicant, all right? You do not need to share those reasons with me. Same thing. There is a practice of a buyer writing what we call a love letter to the seller when they submit an offer. And your seller may want these, they may not want them. That is a decision for you to make with the seller. There's actually an option in the listing contract that stipulates whether or not they should be presented, and you should transfer that information to any agent that contacts you that says they're going to be making an offer, whether or not that would be accepted. And the reason that this option is in the contract is because the state is trying to discourage us from accepting these love letters to the seller, because it can, accidentally lead to this type of discrimination, positive or negative. Perhaps the seller would much rather sell to a family than to a developer client. Well, that's technically discrimination. So I do actually like to still present letters to my seller. I think it sets the tone and just shows a little bit of extra effort as far as, how much a buyer wants a property. But again, I will coach my clients before I present these to them, is that I don't need a comment. Or I would like you not to comment to me on how you feel about what you see in these letters, or what you read in these letters. Simply, if it plays a factor, you can just tell me, you know what, I like these buyers more. It seems like they want it more. Let's just refrain from, I like the idea of a family. I like the idea of this, that. I like the idea, even, let's see here. Source of income is technically discrimination, right? So they're like, oh, I like this family. They're a doctor, I can't hear that kind of stuff, right? I can't hear that. So I just coach my clients before it ever gets to that type of situation so that none of that takes place.
Is profession discrimination? You say profession.
Source of income.
Source of income discrimination, right?
Technically, and remember, if there's no comments made, there can be no, there can be no proof of discrimination, right?
Very careful. Right?
And I need to be professional, and my job is to keep my client out of trouble, right? And so if we refrain from ever commenting on these letters whatsoever and how we feel about them or what we see in them, that's fine. I can transfer information about the professions of the proposed buyers, and I oftentimes do. But again, I remind my client, I'm going to give you factual information I know, but I'd like you to please refrain from making any comments about it so that we stay out of trouble. Okay.
So Christen landlord, I can say, I have a client, he's a doctor at Cedars-Sinai. He's looking for an apartment.
Yeah, you can absolutely say that, and you should, because it makes your client seem strong. They have a job that's perceived as very strong, high income earning, right? However, we want to make sure that no one makes any comments in relation to that. That's all we're doing. We're still transferring information, right? Because guys, buyers with a really strong income source are generally more able to financially perform, right?
Right.
But that's not to say that they couldn't.
Yeah.
Again, just coach your clients.
Okay.
Let's stay out of trouble. Let's just not comment on the information that I'm transferring.
Yeah. Sense.
Possible representation of more than one buyer or seller, disclosure and consent. Again, as a listing agent, this document is always included with the listing contract because it's so important. You have no idea if dual representation will be taking place or not. There's 700 something agents in this office. We are one of the highest producing offices in this area, right? There's a strong possibility there'll be dual representation. Wire fraud and electronic funds transfer advisory. I'll spend a little bit of time on this one because it sounds scary to clients. This is mostly in relation to a buyer. Why? Sellers don't typically wire funds in a transaction. They're only going to be wiring funds if they owe more on a property than they will be receiving for the purchase. That's not a common situation, right? It's not. Again, what we do is anytime any client, usually a buyer, but in those rare instances, a seller, anytime they need to wire funds anyplace, it's going to be to the escrow company typically. In a rare instance, your escrow and title can be the same entity. We're going to verify the validity of the escrow company. They're always going to send an encrypted email. Okay? So security-based email with those wire instructions. And then I'm going to get on the phone on a conference call with my client, and I'm going to call escrow with them. And I'm going to verbally verify those wire instructions. Residential listing agreement, here we are, also referred to as RLA. All right. And you can see that it was revised in June of 2022. At the top left on all of our documents that are contracts and many of our disclosures and other documents, there's going to be a line here that says date prepared. This is a legal reference date. This date is important because if we modify, add to, or change anything in this contract or reference it in accordance with actions that we take professionally, we're going to be asked on subsequent documentation to reference this date. So it's an important date to have. It's not the date that the listing starts. It's not the date that the listing gets signed, though it can be. This is literally the date that you've drafted the document. I have clients sometimes who call me and say, oh, but today is not the 24th, today is the 28th. And I will take the time to explain to them, well, this is actually a legal reference date. It's the date that I drafted the document, but I have no problem changing that date for you because technically once I change it, I will have finished drafting this document on this date. And if you prefer it, I'm happy to do so. I'm not there to argue with the client. I want the fucking listing signed, right? I want my client to be happy, but I also want to secure my position that I do know what I'm doing. So you have to gingerly uptrain is what I call when you're educating people that you need to appease. Exclusive right to sell, blank, seller. All right, so the seller's name should be how title is vested. The vesting of title means how title to the property is legally held. This can be held in the name of a natural person or persons or name of an entity. What are entities? Entities are trusts, LLCs, corporations, that sort of thing. All right. You will need to fill out additional sections and or documentation if the client if the vesting is held in the name of an entity, showing the relationship between the natural person signing on behalf of the entity and their representative authority of that entity. Okay. And we'll go over that subsequently further along in the document. Hereby employs and grants blank broker. This is the name of our brokerage, not our names. So always on this line, if you're here, it should say Keller Williams Beverly Hills. Beginning date, this will be the beginning of your listing period and ending at 11:59 p.m. on date. This will be the end of your listing period. All right, couple of things to note here. There is a rule, is it 2 or 3 days that you have to go on the MLS once you sign, once a listing period starts? I always want to make sure that my listing date and the date it goes on the MLS are the same. So I show 0 days on market. I have a workaround for this because I actually like my listings to be active as of the day they're signed because I generally do a lot of preparation work with my clients, getting the home prepared for market and gathering the information that I need in order to protect my seller's purchase price. Okay. So what will I do? I will put listing beginning date here as of the date I anticipate that they're going to sign it.
Future dates.
I'll usually do it the date that they're going to sign it. That way I can shop internally, like as a pocket listing. Also, they're contractually bound to me if anything comes up, any potential buyers, you know, come out of the woodworks, they talk to their friends, they find someone so that I have a valid contract. However, what I will do is I will set it up as if it's going to be a pocket listing. And we'll talk more about that in the sections that correspond to that in the contract. You'll need another document. So I set it up as if it's never going to go on the market. It's active as of the day that they sign it. And once I have a better idea of what date it's going to go on the market, I will modify my listing using a modification. We went over those documents yesterday. Modification of listing to start my listing date as of the date I'm going to put it on the market and deleting the document necessary to make it a pocket listing. And again, we'll go through this subsequently in the contract when we get to that section. Right? Why might I not know what date I'm going to go on the market? Well, I am at least subject to my photographer schedule and how soon they can get me photos. All right. I see people go on the market with one crummy photo they've taken on their cell phone. Do not do that. there are two things that are vital to the success of selling a listing and how great the terms and price are. What are those things? Price and presentation. If I am putting the listing up with a poor presentation, I've lost buyers already. So I will never go on the market until I have my professional photos. And I might not be ready for my professional photos, not just due to my photographer's schedule, but possibly due to repair work or upgrades they're making, possibly due to staging that may be taking place. So once I start working with the seller, we will put together a roadmap for things that we want to do. We'll start scheduling them. And keep in mind, things change. We run into problems, particularly when you have repair or upgrade work done. When's, does anyone have a handyman or contractor that's ever finished on time? Never, right? Never. Yeah. So remember that this date is flexible and movable. So I tend to be on the conservative side. When I start to book things out with my seller to prepare for market, I don't book the photographer or the staging the day after the repairs are supposed to be done. I generally give at least like a 2 or 3 day cushion unless they need to go on the market very quickly for some reason, in which case it is my job to really micromanage the completion of these items, right? So I give a 2 or 3 day cushion. If I have staging, obviously I want to wait until after the day the staging's done because I don't know what time it will be done in the day. I want my photography to be completed at the very best time the property shows in the day. That could be noon. I could be wanting twilight photos. If stagers are not going to be done until 4 p.m. or say they'll be done by noon, but they're not done until later, and I have my photographer there, he can't photograph something that's not visually ready, right? So I give myself time. I anticipate that there are going to be delays, not significant ones, right? There are times I have to reschedule, certainly because I have more significant problems than I hoped for. But you know what? There is just no relaunching that property. So it needs to be done properly when the property's ready. Those photographs need to be the very best that they can be. All right. Also during this time, right, I'm working on crafting my language for the description, my collateral material like open house flyers, if I'm going to do door knockers announcing my open houses, all this kind of thing. So I keep a mutual calendar with my sellers and update it as needed. Once we have our launch date for the MLS, up around the same time, I'm letting them know which days I'd like to have open houses, clearing that with them. I'm putting calendar invites in, inviting my clients so that they remember, reminders for myself, anything that I need to bring, I'm making checklists, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so.
Christine,
Yes.
so let's say if you go into a listing presentation and the seller wants to sign like immediately, like the next day, and you're not ready for all of that. So the date of the signature would be the next day or something. You want to get that signature as soon as possible. So you make sure you get that listing. Then what are you going to do? You said you change the.
Yeah, so I'm going to go through it as we get through the contract. There's a section for what's called the SELM document,
Oh, okay.
seller to exclude from the multiple listing service. So I set it up like a pocket listing.
Pocket listing.
Yeah. And then I modify it to change it to a regular listing with my updated listing.
I got it, yes.
And I buy time.
And that gives me a valid listing and helps me to circumvent and completely skirt the 2 day or 3 day, whatever it is, MLS entry rule. See, I don't even know what day it is because this is how I do it. This is how we all do it. Yeah. I don't know why they don't just change the rule.
Got it.
It's so that people actually have to put stuff on the MLS because there are shady agents who are holding stuff as pockets trying to dual represent themselves as single agent.
Yeah, for sure.
All those shady people ruin it for the rest of us who are just trying to get our job done.
Sure.
All right, can anyone tell me what the most standard listing period is? How long?
6
Standard.
months.
6 months, yes. 6 months. Can you do it shorter or longer?
Yes.
Yeah. It is generally believed and held up in court that you can't have a listing period that's fair to a seller over a year. Why? Any ideas?
You
A
keep,
lot of stuff can change.
if you can sell it in a year.
Well, a lot of stuff can change. Market conditions can change. So the terms of your listing may not be fair or advantageous to anyone at that point in time. Okay. I think that about 3 months is about as low as I'd be willing to go for a listing period. Can anyone tell me why I might feel that way?
Because right now things stay in the market for that long.
Yeah, it takes
Sitting
me
out.
taking longer to sell, but also why? It takes my time and money.
Yeah.
Who pays for photos? Who pays for marketing collateral?
Yeah.
We do, the agents. Yeah. Can you ask the seller to? Yes, but it's probably not gonna reflect well because the rest of us are all gonna pay for it. That's our job.
Yeah.
So is every listing a good listing? No. I'm not gonna take a listing I think is worth $2 million and put it on the market for 3. First off, I look like an idiot to my colleagues, but secondly, I'm not gonna sell it. And I will have wasted my time and money. Okay, that's not to say I won't take something a little bit overpriced. You know, exercising my better judgment based upon perhaps a contractual built-in price reduction. You know, a verbal understanding of a price reduction. My biggest concern is, do I think that the seller will get realistic with time and with evidence? Is it a good move for me financially? And is it a good investment of my time? All right, yes.
In the event, say someone they really they like you, they like the work that's being done, but the house is just not selling. After the 6 months, can they ask that you work with them again?
Yeah, you can extend a listing.
If
Prior,
it's past the year, if they say. can you
yeah,
do this?
any extension can be for as long as they want. You can modify the terms of the listing agreement with the extension as well. In fact, that's typically what you do. It is very common for high end also to take over a year to sell, very high
Yeah,
end.
and
So,
they're comfortable with
Yeah.
you, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
absolutely. All right. So next is the property address. Where should we get the property address, guys? From title rep or from title software? Why? Well, it's really important that you're aware of the legal city because sometimes cities have additional transfer requirements, like to sale requirements beyond what the state requires. And so in Los Angeles, because it's such a large city, we have area names, okay, like Sherman Oaks, Venice, Hollywood. These are all city of Los Angeles. Individual cities are West Hollywood, or sorry, independent cities are Beverly Hills, West Hollywood, Santa Monica, Culver City. Generally speaking, if there's a fantastic school district, it's probably an independent city is kind of a rule of thumb. But if you're in doubt, just go to, well, not even if you're in doubt, always go to title because it will literally have the legal name of the city on what's called the property description, the property legal description. Okay. All right. Assessor parcel number, also referred to as APN, much more commonly because assessor parcel number is long. This is very important not to leave blank. It is a much stronger indicator of a property's location than the street address. Okay. In the county of Los Angeles, it will always be in this format: 4 digits, -3 digits, -3 digits. If you see anything different, check yourself. There's either an error or it's not in Los Angeles County. On a rare occasion, you will not be able to find an assessor parcel number. This is usually because there's been some subdivision or combination of lots, or you're selling a condo on which the land is leased and not owned by the HOA. This is fine, but you'll want to know why there is no APN. Sometimes this will happen with new construction. You can call your title rep and just verify this. If the property is a mobile home, you check this box and an addendum would pop up. I am admittedly not familiar with mobile home sales. A lot of them do not follow the standard real estate rules because the land upon which that mobile home sits is leased and not owned. And so it's more like a car sale, a personal property sale, than it is a real estate sale. But if the land is owned, it would be handled like a regular real estate sale. That is my food. I assume that got here way faster than I was expecting, and I'm super hungry.
What did you order, Christen?
I ordered Euro plate.
Oh,
If the property is being sold as part of a probate, conservatorship, guardianship, or receivership, you would check this box. This card form will auto-populate and it needs to be filled out. Some of these sales are very complicated. Some of them are very simple and like a regular sale. So something, you'll need to find that kind of stuff out. Usually there's going to be an attorney involved. I know, just my office. Yeah, thank you. There's going to be an attorney involved who can kind of guide you through a lot of the things. But you definitely want to work with someone who's familiar with this type of sale. If you're not. Listing price and terms. Who determines the listing price? Seller, absolutely. Yeah, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make them drink.
So they're not influenced by the.
I hope that I influence them with my CMA, but
That's the leading the horse part.
Okay, so they could just in their mind really think and say, no, this is 3 million. And
yeah, but I'm not signing this listing agreement with them.
Okay, all right, if it's wacky, okay.
Compensation to brokers, section 3A. Remember, the seller pays both the buyer and seller's agent's commissions. Okay, so it's gonna be the total commission paid here. What's our most standard, guys? 5%, yeah. I'm glad I got no 6% answers today, because go you ambitious little agent, but let me tell you, all day long, you're gonna have someone like me right behind you, never asking for anything more than 5%. Can we do more or less? Yeah. If we do less, we need to get that approved by Micro Rosales. Okay. I oftentimes will offer to do a lower total percentage if I, as a sales agent, provide dual representation for both buyer and seller. Although I make it very clear to my clients that is not in their best interest, and I try not to do so. Yes.
When you do 5%, you do 2.5, or you
Yeah.
pay the other person 3%.
Oh yeah, that's coming up soon.
Oh, that's awesome.
2.5, yeah. All right, section 3A2 is called the exclusions period. Whatever date, time frame you've written into here is applicable for if your listing cancels or expires, and anyone you've physically shown the property to during that time frame buys the property. If you've kept track of their name and you've provided a written list to the property owner before the cancellation or expiration of your listing. So if I have that listing price at 3 million that I think is worth 2 because I made a bad business choice, I show it to 200 people. They're all like, Kristen, you're crazy. This is overpriced. But I kept track of those names. I provide a list of those names prior to the expiration of my listing. And that seller goes and gives that listing to another agent at that fucking 2 million price I've been telling them it's worth all day long. And one of those buyers I showed it to, whose name was on the list I gave to the seller before the cancellation or expiration, buys it. I step back in as the listing agent and I get my 2.5%. Okay? And that happens 100%. So keep track of who sees the property. Make sure people sign in at the open house. Okay, 180 days is standard. You can do more or less. That's between you and the seller, whatever you negotiate. But particularly when I'm taking a listing, I'm not sure I can sell, or it's maybe a little overpriced. I'm pretty adamant about that 180 days. All right. Section C is for if the seller wants to give additional compensation, like let's say they're gonna agree to reimburse me for something if I don't sell the property, something like that, that would be under section C. Although again, I don't typically take listings I don't think I can sell. Okay, I might take listings I'm iffy about, but I do not take listings I don't believe I can sell. I don't do it. You can. I might have done it earlier on in my career, but I wasn't getting very many listing opportunities earlier on in my career. It was mostly buyer sales. Section D. This is where you indicate how much of the total commission is being offered to the buyer's agent. How much of the total commission should I be offering to the buyer's agent, guys?
3%.
Half of whatever the total is. So if it's 5, I should be offering them 2.5. If it's 6, 3. If I'm concerned about selling it, I might consider taking a lower commission myself and offering more to the buyer's agent. Although legally that should not influence a buyer's agent's willingness to show the property. Does it, however? Probably. Shady ass people. I just want to make my client happy. Remember, take good care of your client, the rest will follow. Is it ethical for me to offer less than half of the total commission?
Ethical, yeah.
No, it is
No.
not. It It is not considered ethical for me to offer less than half of the total commission. However, there are a couple of exceptions. Let's say I have gone way above and beyond the duties of an agent and my client is offering me more than 5%. Let's say they've agreed to 5.5 or 6% because maybe they live out of the country and they've had me oversee remodel work at the property for months, including selecting things, providing access, ensuring that that work gets done prior to even putting it on the market. At that point, yes, I would discuss with them, the higher commission rate and that I'll be taking, the whole purpose of this is I'm doing this extra service. So I'd like the higher commission. I'd like the 3% and to offer 2.5 to the other side. In no instance where I'm making 5% or more total commission, or we have 5% or more total commission, should we ever be offering less than 2.5%? It is not ethical to take 3% yourself and offer 2. Why?
Pretty bad reputation for yourself.
Buyer's agent would never know. Why? It's because it hurts the seller's chances for selling, because there are agents out there who will not show property where the commission is not at least 2.5%. That is not ethical. That is not legal. You should never engage in behavior like that yourself, but that will happen. So when and this is a great sticking point for trying to get sellers to come up and commission, those that are trying to nickel and dime the commission is, well, seller, you're asking for 4% total commission. That means we can only offer 2% to the buyer's agent, which is going to keep agents from showing it. So not only that is, you're asking me to reduce my fee and offer a reduced fee to a buyer's agent. Now you're asking me to do my job for a lesser fee that's going to be harder because we're offering less than is typical. You want to work with an agent who is going to protect your purchase price. You want the most interested buyers because hopefully you want multiple offers. The more interest you have, generally the higher price and stronger terms you're going to secure in your escrow, right? And so you think you're saving money by offering a reduced commission when in actuality, you may very well be losing money by offering a reduced commission. And again, any kind of reduced commission needs to be approved by Michael Rosales, okay? Yes.
There was a situation with the off-market, and the off-market property that the agent was talking about said, oh, that has only 4% commission. So having said that, because it's off-market now, you said we're not going to find out how much the other person gets.
Unless they tell you.
They said the commission is 4%, so it was 2% just to sell that off-market.
Yeah.
But can we check to see how much that we cannot?
It's in the listing agreement. As the buyer's agent, you're not entitled
Going
to
down.
any access to the listing agreement. It's none of your business. It's not a contract with you.
So question for you, if it's off market and it's hard to show and all of that, and it's a condo, why should we, if we, show that, I mean, it's fine. I mean, we could, we can work with.
Why should you show it?
Show
Because
it.
it works for your buyer.
Not necessarily, because
Well-
the reason it was off market, it was very difficult to show.
That's an individual
Individual
situation.
things.
But remember, it's unethical for you not to show the property to your client because there's a lower commission than you're accustomed to. Yeah.
Okay.
If you know about it and you think it could work for your buyer and you exclude it because you don't feel.
I
the
didn't
commission-
show, I tried to show, but it was so difficult to
That's a
show.
different situation. Those are
Yeah.
two separate issues. But yeah, we cannot refrain from showing property that we think could work for our client to them because of compensation amount.
Got it.
Okay. So here's where you enter the percentage that is going to the buyer's agent. These flat rate options don't apply. Remember, you don't want to work with flat rate numbers, finite numbers in real estate because things change, right? Things change. Section F is for sellers who've been previously on the market. We just talked about that exclusions list and the 180 days that I write in here, where if a buyer I show the property to, whose name I've provided to the property owner before the expiration or cancellation of my listing buys it, I get to step back in and I'm entitled to the commission. Well, if that property has been previously listed, they have an exclusions list that is still valid because it's still within this 180 days. You will need to get that from the seller And you will need to say, see attached exclusions list from previous listing, and you'll need to attach it there. And you don't want to not get it. You need to get that, because that is definitely, if anyone finds out, even after the fact, that's a lawsuit you're gonna lose. That's a lawsuit you're gonna lose. So you're going to have done the job. Everyone's gonna be very unhappy. You're gonna end up in court and you're going to lose. So you need to honor that.
Which one were we talking about?
Section F1.
F1.
Okay, so you would list the previous listing agent and brokerage, and you would see, under section F1, you would list the previous listing agent and brokerage, and F2 is where you'd say see attached for the
See attached.
exclusions list, yeah. All right. Also, that's a different place, so I'm gonna tell you about it when we come to that. Section 4A, items included and excluded. This is an important conversation to have with your client. You'll want to explain to them the legal definition of items that are permanently affixed to the property, because that is what is legally anticipated to be included with the sale. Permanently affixed means that it has a permanent fixture, right? Like a screw, a bolt, a nail. So that would mean a television mount, but not the television. That would mean curtain rods, but not the curtains. So guys, just be clear, this is the opening for you to have the conversation with your seller about what is going to be included and excluded, what would be customary. And if they want any deviations from this, this is not binding upon a buyer. That needs to be in the residential purchase agreement. This is so that you know as the listing agent, okay? Leased not owned items. This is not that common in our area, but it does take place sometimes, the most common being for a solar panel. So what that means is there's something permanently affixed to the property that will not be moved, that a seller is contractually bound in a lease agreement for. So it needs to be transferred with the property. It may not legally be able to be transferred with the property. So the seller may have to pay off that agreement in order to sell the property, or more commonly, it would be assumed by the buyer. And you'll need to know what the process is like for that. There are recorded documents. It's complicated. You'll need to know the costs and fees that the buyer will need to assume. So you need to have all of that information ahead of time before going to market. Multiple listing service. Our MLS is CLAW, Combined Los Angeles and West Side. And it is a service that we put our listings in. And most MLSs cooperate, meaning we can see listings from other agents that belong to different boards who have a different MLS that they work with, but not all of them do. And so it's very important and ethically for you to know that if you're listing a property in a certain area where your MLS is not the primary MLS. So like even the Valley, our MLS is not the primary MLS. It's the ones that start with SR that are. Our MLS numbers start with the year. So it'd be 23 dash something. Is that fine? Absolutely, because those agents in that area that operate primarily in the area, they can see the listing. But would it be ethical for me to list a property in a city in which those agents didn't have access to my MLS? Because I can only list on my MLS. No, it's not. So what would I have to do? I'd have to refer that business or co-list it with someone with access to that primary MLS.
Can you also become a member of that board?
I don't know if you can become a member of that board or not. I don't know if you can be a member of more than one board. Possibly, I would assume so because agents operate in different cities, but that'd be a question for that board, I think. Yeah. But again, these boards, if we're not cooperating with them, they're not going to be anywhere near here. It's probably not ethical for you to be able to service that listing anyhow. Yes.
So if the listing's in the Valley, we shouldn't put it in this MLS, put it in.
No, we would put it in our MLS because our MLS cooperates with the
Cooperates.
Valley's MLS. So they
You're
can
talking
see
about
it.
maybe like Palm Springs or something.
I've only ever seen one. I didn't even know this was a thing. I didn't know what this section of the listing contract meant until I had a client moving to a city called Lone Pine, which is like an hour outside of Mammoth. You drive through it. It's like one of those speed trap cities. Like I didn't even know where it existed until I went to the Mammoth for the first time, but I tried to pull listings for him from that city and I couldn't see anything. So I called the MLS and I was like, what's up with this? Why can't I see what's here? And they were like, oh, that MLS doesn't cooperate with our MLS. probably because that board was smart and they want to keep
Keep
us
them.
big agents out of there from selling vacation properties so the local agents can have business. Smart board, smart agents voting on behalf
So
of
you
them.
referred it out? You referred it out?
Yeah, I referred it out, of course. Well, first off, once I figured out where it was, I was like, fuck that. I'm not driving 5 hours to go show you anything. I don't know what's going on up there.
And if you refer it, would you still be able to get some sort of compensation?
Yeah, you would have a referral.
You get the
fee.
referral fee, okay.
Negotiate with the other fee. Yeah, so under section 5C, you're gonna list law here if you're part of our board. If you're not part of our MLS, that means you probably started your career off at a different brokerage in a different area. And you should transfer to our board. Why? Well, I mean, you want the MLS that the majority of agents in the area that you're operating in use. Not everything transfers perfectly, although it's pretty good. And also, if you're a newer agent and you're learning from me, I'm always going to be using our MLS here and referring to the rules and the things that we do within our MLS because I'm a member of our board. Okay, so if you're not, if you don't have the primary MLS, that's okay. You still have to check this box. So if I'm listing a property in the valley, sorry, my foot's asleep. I have to check this box under C. But that's okay because I'll have the discussion with my client, letting them know that's okay. My MLS cooperates with that MLS. Everyone will see everything. Okay. I have never had anyone who wasn't a true pocket listing want to opt out of the MLS, but this goes over the reasons why opting out of MLS exposure could be hurtful to a seller. Also, why listing a property not in a local MLS can be bad. What we just talked about, right? Is if the agents in that area can't see it. Okay, public marketing of property, we have a clear cooperation policy, which means that we need to submit, it's 1 business day. Our listings to the MLS, no, that's not what it means. Clear cooperation policy is in relation to pocket listings, okay? Pocket listings cannot be advertised in a public facing way. They cannot be advertised on social media. I can DM them to people on social media. I can do one-on-one marketing to the public, to potential clients. I cannot do public facing advertising. Can I e-blast it to all the agents in the world? Absolutely. I, however, cannot cannot blast it on Facebook marketing. I can't do that because if any member of the public could just see it, that I'm not directly messaging, that's a violation of cooperation policy. Do people do it? Yes. And so the MLS made a rule that if you get caught, whether or not the seller wants it to be a pocket listing, it has to go on the MLS then. Good luck enforcing that. Sounds like an empty threat to me, but don't do it because it's unethical.
That's only for the pocket ones.
Yeah, that's only for pocket.
So pocket keep it only for 2 weeks, you said?
No,
So how do you?
pocket can be as long as your listing period.
Really?
I always keep it as a pocket till I'm ready for market.
Pocket,
Yeah. Which is generally about 2 weeks, depending upon how much work we need to do on the house.
Normally, yeah.
Yeah, coming soon. All right, I admittedly understand nothing about coming soon marketing. Why? I think it's unethical. Because coming soon means you can put it on the MLS and everyone can see it, but you can basically cherry pick who gets into the property to see it. So if it's coming soon, really that should mean that it shouldn't be shown. But you know what? If a buyer calls me directly and is like, I'm all cash, can't you just get me in?
Yeah.
I have to be like, oh, Kristen, don't do that. That's violating the rules. That's not ethical,
Really?
right? No, it's not. How is that to the seller's benefit? The seller's benefit is that everyone sees it and they get as many offers as possible, right? So the other part about coming soon that I don't like is, why do I want to go put it out in the world? So everyone can get excited and forget about it before they can actually get in to see it?
Yeah.
I don't understand the purpose of coming soon other than to legally fuck your client by being unethical and deciding who gets in to see it. I don't see the point of coming soon.
Maybe do double end.
Yeah, that's unethical.
That's it.
Yeah. So I don't see the point of it. I don't understand anything about it. If you
It's
want to do
legal
it,
put it in
call the
there.
MLS and
Coming
talk
soon
about
is
it.
easy. Legal.
Coming soon is legal. Here's the thing, if you want to do coming soon, you risk losing buyer interest before it's ready to be shown, because you should not be showing this property to anyone until you're ready to show it to everyone.
Yes.
All right, seller instructs broker. This is the section for that car form SELM to exclude from the multiple listing service that I use so I can take my listing active as of the day the seller signs it, yet not have to put it on the MLS within 1 day or whatever it is. And so I make it a pocket listing. That way, when I'm ready to put it on the MLS, which I don't know what that date is going to be yet, I can then issue a modification, modifying the terms of my listing agreement, making the listing period start effective as of the date I know I'm going to put it on the MLS. Does that make sense, guys? So on my modification, I have 2 items I'm changing. 1, listing start date is hereby modified to, and then I put in whatever date I want to put it on the MLS so I can show 0 days on market because that's in my client's best interest. And 2 is seller instruction to exclude from the multiple listing service is hereby deleted in its entirety.
So this is the number D, the number C is the modification? No,
D.
D.
So you would check this box.
And then you put a new date, like whenever you're ready?
On the modification document.
Okay, that's a
Yeah,
different.
and you would say that the seller instruction to delete, seller instruction to exclude from the multiple listing service is deleted. And property shall be placed on MLS, and you can say what on this date, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Clear, section, 7F, clear cooperation policy does not apply. That doesn't work for us because our board requires clear cooperation. So you will never be messing with 7F. 8, MLS data on the internet. Basically, it tells the seller that once the property goes on the MLS, it goes everywhere on the internet.
Viral.
It goes viral, exactly. Okay, the property address, comments and reviews, Zillow estimates, things like that, they're just gonna go up there. I think that there are ways to opt out of certain features, like this option here. Like seller elects to opt out of certain features for the Zillow, like Zestimate, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't show up on Zillow at that point, and that hurts your seller's exposure. So I always advise my clients not to do this. And does Zillow do anything we tell them to do? No. Did they do things accurately? Sometimes. Do they ever respond to us and fix it when they're doing it inaccurately? No. No. Zillow is not your friend, guys. They are your direct competitor. And they've cornered that market because they have instilled themselves as the best platform on which to look at property if you are interested in buying a home.
Is Redfin same as Zillow?
Yes. They were just second to the show.
They're advertising like 1% now.
Realtor.com.
Yeah. Hey, you get what you pay for. I always ask my clients, I look at the woman and I'm like, would you let Supercuts color your hair? Why would you let Supercuts sell your house?
That's a good
That's a
one.
good one.
Yeah.
That's a really good one.
I'm stealing that.
Oh, I do it all the time. You get what you pay for. Let me tell you, seller, as soon as that agent knows what they're doing and cares, they're gonna leave because they
Yeah.
will expect to make 2.5% to 3% commission, and they will, and they've earned it. And that agent, hopefully, and should be worth that additional commission because they're gonna put your interest first. They're gonna be more skilled at it. They're gonna protect your price. You're not saving money.
No.
You're losing it. Nobody who knows what they're doing is going to work there for 1% or flat rate or whatever. They don't even get all of that 1%.
No, they just say they get a salary, I think,
They get a flat rate, I think,
Flat
for
rate.
closing. I don't know.
$500.
$500. I couldn't even like sit at inspections for $500.
No, they show like 20, 30 properties a day. There was somebody came here from Zillow Redfin and they said we were showing like 30, 40 properties.
Oh my gosh.
You have all these tour rooms, you can go in now.
That sounds stressful. Okay, section 10 goes through brokers and sellers' duties. Like the seller has to actually make the property available for showings and inspections and all of that. Agent has to actually, do what they can to sell the property. All right, here's that section here. Under 10(2)B, whether or not the seller says, yeah, listing agent, please present those buyer love letters to me or not. So the way the contract is written, it says, do not present to me. So if they do want to see those letters, you check this box. Investigation and reports. All right, so this is a contractually binding agreement between you and the seller that the seller is going to get inspections and or estimates and reports on something within a certain time frame, prior to or after the start date of this agreement. If there is anything I'm really concerned about, I never use this section because I want to know before I choose to list that property with the seller. I don't want information that is not coming from a resource that we trust or is relevant. But if I think that there's actually a problem with anything, 100%, I'm telling that seller, we need to know this. We need to know how much it costs. We need to know we have accurate information before we go on the market because A, we want to make sure the information is accurate. We don't know that the buyer inspector is going to give us accurate assessment or numbers or who they are. And we can't control that. And we are subsequently bound to give that information to any other subsequent buyer if that escrow fails, if it cancels, right? Number two, if it's actually a big problem, let's see if we can fix it and make that not be a problem anymore while we control the situation. Number three, let's see if the problem is so big that we really can't sell. Okay, that we have to resolve some issues before we can even consider selling the property. So I don't use section E. I take care of this before I sign a listing agreement. Again, read all of this that we're not going through. I'm not going to go through sections that don't require completion, but you need to know what it says. Read this document until you know it. If you read anything and you don't understand it, call me. Let's talk about it. Talk to your mentor. Let's just talk. Make sure you talk it through until you understand it and you can explain every line to a potential seller. You know, you're not prepared. You're not fully prepared. So read. Okay. Potentially competing buyers and sellers. That's a disclosure that was in the package at the beginning. So this box will always be checked. You don't have to check it. You can't uncheck it even if you tried. Section 13 is important. I go through this with my clients for a few reasons. Security. I'm a female. Female real estate agents are a target for criminals. Okay. Homes for sale are a target for criminals. Okay. So first off, if the property is under surveillance and I'm having an event for the public, like an open house, I am legally obligated to let the public know that they are under whatever type of surveillance they're under. Okay. Secondly, I kind of want to know that if my seller is recording me or not, right? Reminder, be a little bit more careful about what I say. But third, even if there is not security there, I want to know because I want to get my seller's permission to post that there is, so that hopefully it, discourages any would-be criminals from perpetrating any crimes against the house or myself as an agent. Will shady stuff happen? If you work in this business long enough, I absolutely guarantee it. I have had two instances in which I was very threatened. One in which I actually left the open house I was sitting and I went next door to the neighbors and I called the police.
Wow.
Fuck that. The guy made me so uncomfortable. I just walked out. Do not let your personal safety ever be an issue. Okay. The other one, thankfully, my boyfriend at the time was upstairs turning off lights on the second floor, but I had a creep come in to a $10 million Bel Air listing. Okay. These isolated areas, these big ass houses, they're more of a target. It's not areas that you would be concerned for your safety. It is usually expensive homes in isolated areas. And the guy touched me. Yeah. But thankfully I was not alone and I had someone upstairs with me. So that's another thing. If the house is really large or in an isolated area, I will discuss with my sellers that I would like to have someone with me at the open houses. Do I have your permission for that? Better, so we can better watch everyone and make sure your home is protected, but also for my personal safety. Insurance. So if a home is not occupied, a lot of times a homeowner's insurance policy will not cover what they would typically if the home was occupied. It's called a vacancy clause. And so if my sellers intend not to live at the property while the home is on the market, I can be a standout agent by advising them to talk to their insurance carrier and find out if they have a vacancy clause, whether or not the property will be protected while it's not occupied, and what the stipulations are for non-occupancy, right? Does that mean they haven't been there for 15 days, 30 days? How long? Do they need to get subsequent insurance to protect it? Because again, remember, homes that are on the market, that information is publicly viral out in the world. Criminals see that, they target that. They will go into those homes and rob them because they know that no one's home. Yes.
So if it's a staged company that puts stuff over there and it gets robbed, is the owner responsible or the staging company has insurance?
I imagine that both happen, but I don't know. I don't know. I thankfully have never been in that situation. And really, I'm sure the insurance companies are gonna fight it out.
So if the owner has it empty, it's just empty and there's nothing in it and it's only staging stuff.
There can still be vandalism and all
That,
that.
okay.
Yeah. They can still steal appliances, copper pipes. What'd you say, Richard?
The squatters.
Yeah, squatters can go in there, cause damage, yeah. Also, this is the time when I talk to my clients about securing their home. Prescription drugs, valuables, things like extra keys that are out, right? They need to make sure that these things are not, out. I assure my clients that I do my absolute best to, keep an eye on what's going on and the people that are in their home, but that I hope that our open houses are so full of people and there's so much interest that there's no possible way for me to do so. And so I need them to take the extra precaution of securing these valuables. If you don't have this discussion with them and something gets stolen, they're probably going to expect you to replace their Louis. Okay. So even things like women's high-end shoes, everybody knows I got a thing for purses and shoes, right? You can tell by looking at me. So I'd probably want to lock my walk-in closet if I was having an open house. I will also tell clients, anything that's really fragile or bright and shiny, children might take something that's not valuable. So let's just secure it. Yes.
Can sellers sometimes put signs on their property, say they travel a lot, they're not really there, but they're selling their home? Do not disturb occupants or?
Yeah, that's something I would do anyways, so that people don't go knock on the door and bother the sellers.
Okay,
But I don't think that's going to deter anyone really.
Okay.
I just set my clients up for as much success as possible. Everybody wants to be safe, right? Also, I like to take this time, particularly you ladies, make sure someone knows where you're at when you do showings, when you're doing open houses. Make sure you have someone checking on you to make sure that they hear your voice when you're supposed to be done, right? Share my team and I, when I get a call on one of my listings for an unrepped client, I'm fucking share my location with everybody. I'm like, come and find my ass, please. I do not want to be taken. And there are times like someone makes me feel uncomfortable on the phone or I can't verify their phone number. Actually, this happens to me a lot when I'm working with higher end clients. They all have one of those Google numbers. I'll have celebrities contact me directly on occasion, like Aaron Paul freaks the fuck out of me. I listed Maynard Keenan, who is the lead singer of Tool's house, up in on Holly Ridge, up what's the canyon with all the really bad traffic as you're going out to the east side.
Benedict Canyon?
No, not Benedict, further east.
Okay.
Coldwater.
Huh? Not Laurel.
Coldwater.
No, east. Think we're going Silver Lake area. We're going Los Feliz area up by Griffith.
Oh,
It's okay, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anyways, I sold the house up there and Aaron Paul must have been a Tool fan. And I am pop culture oblivious. I watched Breaking Bad, but I don't know what that guy's name is. He calls me and he's like, I'd like to see the house. And I'm like, okay, sir, I need your name for the showing. Aaron, Okay, Aaron, what's your last name, please? Paul, and then complete silence.
Oh, you
And I'm
forgot.
like, okay, Aaron, Paul, I will see you at 2 p.m. I called my boyfriend. I was like, fucking weird, dude. Just called me. I'm scared. Can you come with me? He's like, you dumb bimbo. It's Aaron Paul, Breaking Bad. And I'm like, it might not be.
Yeah,
And
why
he's
not?
like, but it'd be cool if it is. Yeah, I'll be there with you. Okay, it was. And he brought his hot wife. Yeah. He's just got married to that super gorgeous woman. Anyways, yeah, and it was cool, but he was fucking weird. He was weird on the phone and he was weird in person.
It's very.
Yeah. Anyways, he was probably being weird with me because he didn't like giving out his name, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, have someone there with you, protect yourself. Just because they say they're somebody doesn't mean that they are. Do not watch Dateline because a lot of female real estate agents get murdered on that program. I'm like, share my location all over the place now. My brand new husband calls it wife finder. He's like, you haven't left the house yet. You're going to be late. And I'm like, you fucking weird stalker. Stop. But yeah, I share my location like crazy when I do showings. And I always have someone calling me. Key safe lockbox. The way that our contract is written says that the seller does allow us to put a lockbox on the property. It's not common practice for us in our area to put lockbox on property that's not vacant. Even when it's not vacant, our property value is so high. We typically don't have a lockbox. We typically do accompanied showings. That's just industry standard for our level of professionalism in our area. Once you start to get into South Bay or the Valley, you'll see everybody has everything on lockbox. That's your personal decision to make in your business and with your clients. But again, you'll have someone behind me like you saying, I promise, seller, no one will ever be in your home that is not with one of me or with myself or one of my team agents. What the fuck do we get paid for? I mean, I myself, when I'm doing a showing that's unaccompanied, I've missed a whole room in a house. And my buyers and I went back because they liked it anyways, and then we found a new room. That would have never happened if the listing agent was there. It should never happen.
Yeah.
So I typically do check this box. Sign. The way our contract is written says that the seller does allow a sign on their house, whether or not they want one. If it's a condo or in certain cities, it's regulated or not allowed, or there's a certain size or a permit required. So make sure that you're checking as far as the city regulations. You're not just taking the information from your seller. Okay, Beverly Hills only allows small signs and you need a permit that you get from the city. So if you don't have one of those small signs, guess who's going to be ordering a sign on a rush if you have a listing? You. The permit's really easy to get. You just walk into the city. Let's see. Additional terms. So if the property is held in title in a trust, go check this box for a trust advisory. If it was a short sale, a short sale. If it was an REO. These are not common for us right now. But trusts are very common. If the seller says, I'm only going to complete the sale of my property if you find me a replacement purchase property, you would check this box. Just an FYI, technically, it is the brokerage, not us, that has a listing agreement with the seller. So we can sign the listing contract, but if you're going to change it or cancel it, management has the right to disagree and actually needs to sign off on any documents that modify or cancel our listings. Successors and or assigns, a listing agreement is binding even in the case of your seller passes upon their successors and or assigns. But man, you better not be an asshole and do that. If it's like, no, we don't want to sell, don't be that agent. I don't see how that's good for your reputation. Dispute resolution, there's section in here for mediation, arbitration. Ownership, title, and authority. The seller says that they have ownership and hold title to the property unless they've stipulated otherwise here. If they have anything to say in line 24, you're probably not selling that property until you have another conversation with someone. Legally authorized signer. So if your seller owns property, has property vested in the name of an entity, you check this box. And car form RCSD is not required because you'll go ahead and you'll fill out basically the information that would be required on an RCSD form. here. RCSD stands for Representative Capacity Signature Disclosure Statement. Okay, and again, that just identifies a relationship between the person signing on behalf of the entity and their authority with the entity. Okay, seller signs here. If you are co-listing with a brokerage from a different brokerage, you would check this box. Card form ABA is going to auto-populate and you would complete that. That's pretty common situation, very common in higher end. And then seller's advisory, I'm not going to go through it, but you read it. Guys, that's residential listing agreement. You guys have any questions?
That was great.
No? Okay, good, fantastic. I hope you have a great day and I'll see you next week.
Christine, bon appetit.
Thank you. I'm dying.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
eating the soup.
Yes, sir, I am. And I act like I'm eating for 5.
She ordered euros.
Euro,
Euros.
pita plates.
Beautiful jacket, Christine.
Thank you. Again, not locking that closet.
If they get a hold of all your stuff, they're gonna.
Oh, man, I have renter's insurance. Oh, yeah.
You have?
I have been robbed
You have
before,
that.
yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Christine.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Have a good weekend. A good weekend for you. For you.
Crazy. What the were
Tell her
you?
Richard, we had sushi yesterday. She was gone.
Oh,
So I could get her another
thank
sushi for her.
you.
I have to
Thank
get her- I
you,
have to
thank
get her
you,
another
thank you. So much going on.
I kept calling her, Richard, we and Richard had the sushi, and then I kept calling her, and then tell her they kicked us out.
Yeah.
Those.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna wash my.
Great.
Did you speak to Sean?
Who?
Sean, Ravi,
Sean, which one?
Ravi.
Sean Moore? No.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, what'd you tell
Yeah,
him?
yeah, we talked.
Did you talk, and what did he say? He says yes?
Well, yeah, I think he's going to be able to help
Hard
them.
money,
It's
yeah, he's a
a-
hard money guy.
Yeah, so it's a project. I
super
had the
exciting.
architect call him. And then, cause
That's
they know the lingo, you
Another
know.
lingo, no, he just wants to make sure his money's secure and that's it.
That's really, yeah.
Just looks at the project and everything.
Even.
See, all the stuff she was saying, you gotta be
Yeah.
careful, because you out there every weekend.
I'm not-
Stuff.
Well, yeah, that's why I was asking, and I have
People
someone,
are scared of assets.
that's the thing. If you run up, I'm locking you in the house. And then they're gonna
No,
be
but
like,
she's
oh my
always got-
God,
she
be
normally
like,
has somebody with her. She
I'm-
doesn't go.
I'm gonna tell them I was waiting
No,
for
it's
you.
good that you have
Welcome,
somebody.
come on
No, it's
in.
good that you have somebody.
But no, I don't let anybody walk behind me. Even one guy, he was a little creepy.
What did you show last weekend?
Sunday was the best day.
What
And
did you
then
show? Same?
different people.
No, same.
Hello, Mary.
Or be different?
No, same property, but different girl came, Jenny.
I talked to, I don't think he has an offer
I
yet.
sent you an
They
email.
have so much going on, I don't know.
No, with that.
No, if you want to go online or something.
Yeah, they're taking any buyers.
No, but right now, they don't, I thought they have an offer.
Well, they
accepted
have
offer.
different ones, but it's not the price.
Oh.
They want to get closer to the price. So many offers, but it's low.
Yeah.
They're trying to
You know,
lowball.
I thought you said they have a 1.3 offer.
That's what I heard, but I heard that's not
I don't know, maybe they're just saying.
people maybe, yeah.
Contingency.
Cause I asked and she's like, no, we're trying to get very close.
How's Richard doing today? Richard,
I guess I'm okay.
Richard, do you want to go to Sinai Temple tonight?
Oh, that's nice.
You guys can go there. It's the 75th celebration of Israel.
Oh, I'm a Judean Christian,
That's what I'm
so
saying.
yeah.
You can go over there and there's a program starting from 6:30.
And Picos?
Pico?
No, it's on Pico?
No, Sinai Temple is on Wilshire.
Wilshire, okay.
Sinai, Wilshire and Beverly. The Wilshire and, is that Beverly Boulevard?
Beverly, there's two Beverlys, one runs east and west. Which one are you talking
I
about?
can send you the thing.